abductions, we're fascinated by the idea of extraterrestrial life. Now, scientists have found the strongest evidence yet that a planet 124 light years away could be home to life.
For centuries, Saturn has been one of the most fascinating planets in our solar system.
I saw this illumination that was moving with respect to the stars. We were smart enough to not say, Houston, there's a light out there that's following us.
With its dazzling rings, stormy atmosphere, and dozens of moons, it has always stood apart as a jewel in the night sky. But in recent years, Saturn has become the focus of something even stranger. Claims of massive structures, objects of staggering size, filmed or photographed moving in and around its rings. Some astronomers have brushed these off as ice fragments, shadows, or camera artifacts. Others insist that something far more extraordinary may be happening. And now, the story has taken an even more shocking turn. A signal, allegedly emanating from one of these colossal structures, has been detected. If true, this could represent the first direct communication from something, or someone, beyond Earth. The earliest reports of anomalies near Saturn's rings date back to NASA's Voyager missions in the 1980s. As Voyager 1 and 2 passed by the gas giant, they captured images of unusual features in the rings, spokes of light, unexplained patterns, and shadows cast by objects far larger than expected ice chunks. While scientists attributed these to complex electromagnetic interactions, others speculated that the rings might not be entirely natural. Later, the Cassini spacecraft, which orbited Saturn from 2004 to 2017, revealed even more mysteries: massive moonlets embedded in the rings, strange propeller shapes suggesting hidden bodies, and unusual structures stretching across kilometers. Among UFO researchers, these anomalies fueled long-standing theories that Saturn's rings could be a hub of activity, perhaps even artificial in nature. The late Dr. Norman Bergrun, a former NASA engineer, famously claimed that enormous cylindrical craft were present within the rings, structures so vast they dwarfed Earth. His claims were controversial, dismissed by mainstream science, but they gained a devoted following. Over time, videos and photographs from amateur astronomers appeared online, showing what seemed to be massive objects casting shadows across the rings or even moving against the natural flow of debris. The most recent footage, captured by a high-powered telescope and later enhanced by digital analysis, appears to show a dark, elongated structure moving independently near Saturn's B ring. Unlike ice particles, which orbit in predictable paths, this object seems to shift course, leaving a subtle distortion in the surrounding material. Some skeptics argue it is simply a trick of light or an artifact caused by image processing, but others insist the footage is authentic, pointing to its consistency with decades of anomalous observations around Saturn. And then comes the most startling claim: radio astronomers monitoring Saturn's magnetosphere reportedly detected an unusual signal coinciding with the movement of this structure. Unlike the natural radio emissions Saturn is known for, its powerful auroral radio waves, plasma interactions, and lightning storms, this signal was structured, repeating, and narrow-banded, traits often associated with artificial transmission. While no official confirmation has been made, leaks from observatories suggest that the signal repeated at precise intervals before fading, as though deliberately broadcast. The possibility of a signal from Saturn's rings has electrified the UFO community and unnerved even cautious scientists. If real, it would not only confirm the presence of anomalous structures near Saturn, but also imply intentional communication. Was it directed at Earth, or was it simply a transmission we happened to intercept? What message, if any, did it carry? These questions remain unanswered, but the implications are staggering. What makes this story even more compelling is its timing. Humanity is on the cusp of a new era of space exploration, with planned missions to Titan, Enceladus, and beyond. Discovering a signal now, near Saturn's rings, would suggest we are not alone, and that we may already be under observation. Whether natural or artificial, The massive structures filmed moving in Saturn's rings challenge everything we thought we knew about the gas giant. But if the signal proves genuine, then the mystery deepens beyond planetary science. It enters the realm of cosmic contact. Saturn has always been a source of radio signals, but until recently, these signals have been firmly within the realm of natural science. Its powerful magnetic field, auroras, and constant storms generate a wide range of radio emissions. These emissions were first detected by the Voyager spacecraft in the 1980s and later studied extensively by Cassini, which orbited Saturn for over a decade. The planet essentially sings, producing bursts of plasma waves, pulses from lightning storms, and oscillations tied to the rotation of its magnetosphere. Astronomers describe these emissions as chaotic yet explainable, a planet alive with electrical activity. But the alleged new signal linked to the massive structure filmed near the rings does not fit into these natural patterns. Normally, Saturn's radio waves are broad-banded and irregular. They resemble static bursts, changing with the intensity of solar winds or the shifting of the planet's auroras. What radio astronomers claim to have detected, however, is narrow-band, repetitive, and highly structured. In other words, it does not sound like a storm or a plasma burst. It sounds like a transmission. Leaked reports describe the anomaly as repeating at precise intervals, almost like a beacon. Instead of fading in and out randomly, it pulsed steadily for several minutes before vanishing. The frequency was unusually clean, showing none of the distortions that normally plague planetary signals. One astronomer, speaking anonymously, described it as eerily artificial, noting that it bore resemblance to the kind of radio signals we ourselves send into space: tight, focused, and deliberate. Skeptics immediately raised objections. Could it have been interference from Earth-based sources such as satellites or radio towers? Could the telescope have accidentally picked up a terrestrial broadcast bouncing off the ionosphere? These possibilities were considered, but researchers claim to have ruled them out. The signal, they said, originated from the exact direction of Saturn, and multiple observatories in different parts of the world reportedly recorded the same anomaly. That eliminated the likelihood of local interference. Another possibility was that it could be an unusual form of natural resonance within Saturn's magnetosphere, perhaps triggered by one of its moons or by solar activity. However, experts pointed out that such resonances would not produce the precise, repeating pattern observed. Saturn's known emissions are turbulent and dynamic, not orderly. The fact that this signal appeared to coincide with the movement of a large, dark object near the rings only deepened the mystery. For those willing to entertain extraordinary explanations, the signal raised provocative questions. If the massive structure seen near the B ring is not a fragment of ice or rock, but something artificial, could the signal have been a form of communication? Was it directed toward Earth, or was it part of some unknown interaction between objects in Saturn's orbit? The idea that it might be a beacon is particularly chilling, because beacons are meant to be noticed. Adding to the intrigue is the historical context. Astronomers have long speculated about the possibility of technosignatures, signals or structures in space that betray the presence of advanced civilizations. Most searches for technosignatures have focused on distant stars, looking for unusual energy signatures or laser pulses. But if one were to appear in our own solar system, it would be impossible to dismiss. The discovery of a repeating radio anomaly near Saturn could represent exactly that, a local technosignature hidden in plain sight. Mainstream scientists remain cautious. The absence of official confirmation from major space agencies, such as NASA or ESA, suggests either that the anomaly is still under review or that it is being kept under wraps until further study confirms its nature. Some argue this secrecy is necessary to avoid hysteria, while others believe it is another example of governments suppressing information about extraterrestrial phenomena. After all, if a signal truly originated near Saturn, the implications would reverberate far beyond astronomy. They would challenge philosophy, religion, geopolitics, and humanity's sense of its place in the cosmos. For now, what makes the anomaly stand out is not just its structure, but its timing. It emerged at the same time that new footage of a massive, independent object near the rings circulated, leading some to connect the two. Could the signal have been emitted by that object, either deliberately or as a byproduct of its operation? Or is the timing coincidental, with two unrelated mysteries becoming tangled into one narrative? Until the data is released for independent analysis, speculation will continue to dominate. Still, one fact cannot be ignored: Saturn's natural radio emissions have been studied for decades, and nothing like this has been reported before. If the anomaly proves genuine, it represents a new category of signal, one that does not fit comfortably into natural explanations. And that possibility, no matter how unsettling, is why researchers are paying attention. Long before the alleged signal from Saturn's rings made headlines, astronomers, both professional and amateur, had been noticing strange anomalies around the gas giant. Saturn has always stood out as one of the most visually striking planets in the solar system. Its massive, shimmering rings, stretching hundreds of thousands of kilometers in diameter, yet only meters thick, make it unique. But these very rings, as beautiful as they are, have often behaved in ways that defy easy explanation. From the first spacecraft flybays to modern telescopes, Saturn's rings have given us glimpses of shadows, structures, and movements that fuel speculation that something more than natural forces is at work. The Voyager missions of the late 1970s and early 1980s were the first to reveal Saturn's mysteries in detail. When Voyager 1 and 2 passed by the planet, they sent back images of unexpected phenomena: long, dark spokes stretching across the rings like ghostly shadows. These spokes appeared and vanished irregularly, not tied to predictable orbital mechanics. Scientists attributed them to charged particles and electromagnetic effects, but the sheer scale and sharpness of the features unsettled observers. Alongside these spokes, Voyager also documented strange gaps and waves in the rings, as though invisible forces were disturbing the icy particles. For some researchers, these disturbances hinted at the presence of hidden objects, moonlets, or even larger bodies carving paths unseen. Decades later, the Cassini spacecraft expanded the mystery. Arriving at Saturn in 2004, Cassini orbited the planet for 13 years, capturing unprecedented close-up images of the rings and moons. Among its discoveries were the so-called propeller structures, gigantic disturbances in the rings caused by objects too small to be classified as moons, but too large to be dismissed as ice fragments. These propellers suggested hidden bodies kilometers wide, embedded within the rings. Cassini also found ringlets behaving unpredictably, clumps forming and dispersing without explanation, and temporary arcs that looked almost artificial. While most scientists attributed these to complex gravitational and electromagnetic interactions, others began to whisper that Saturn's rings might not be entirely natural. One of the most controversial voices was Dr. Norman Bergrun, a former NASA engineer. In his 1986 book, The Ringmakers of Saturn, he argued that Voyager images revealed enormous cylindrical objects moving through the rings, machines so vast that they appeared to create or manipulate the rings themselves. Bergrun described them as electromagnetic vehicles, some stretching tens of thousands of kilometers in length, dwarfing Earth's largest structures. His claims were dismissed by mainstream science, but they captured the imagination of UFO researchers and conspiracy theorists. Bergrun's work became a cornerstone of the idea that Saturn's rings might conceal massive artificial constructs. Amateur astronomers have since added fuel to the fire. High-powered telescopes in the hands of dedicated hobbyists have captured unusual footage: dark, elongated objects crossing the rings, sudden flashes of light, or shadows that seem to move against the natural orbit of ring particles. Some of these anomalies can be explained as camera artifacts or processing errors, but others remain puzzling. The consistency of reports, different observers in different locations noting similar phenomena, suggests at least some anomalies are real. One particularly intriguing observation came in 2016 near the end of Cassini's mission. Images revealed what appeared to be a massive, unexplained object casting a long shadow across the B ring. NASA described it as likely a large clump of material, but conspiracy theorists argued the sharpness of the shadow implied a solid, independent structure. This shadow bore striking resemblance to the kinds of cylindrical craft Berggren had described decades earlier. Now, with recent footage allegedly showing a dark structure moving independently near the rings, the historical context becomes impossible to ignore. For over 40 years, Saturn has been associated with anomalies, spokes, shadows, clumps, propellers, and alleged machines. Add to this the new claim of a repeating signal detected in the same time frame, and the narrative begins to take shape. If Saturn has always harbored mysterious objects, could the latest structure and signal be connected to the same long-running phenomenon? Skeptics argue that every one of these anomalies has natural explanations. Spokes are caused by electromagnetic charges. Shadows are cast by clumps of ice. Propellers come from hidden moonlets. As for Berggren, his interpretations are considered fringe. But even among skeptics, Saturn's rings remain baffling in their complexity. Unlike any other planetary feature in the solar system, the rings seem alive, constantly shifting, evolving, and throwing surprises at observers. For believers, the history of anomalies is evidence of continuity. They argue that it is not coincidence that Saturn has repeatedly been associated with strange structures and unexplained behaviors. To them, the new footage and the signal are simply the latest chapter in a story that stretches back to Voyager. If Berggren was right, and enormous artificial machines are embedded in the rings, then the signal could be their first deliberate acknowledgement of our presence. What is certain is that Saturn continues to defy easy categorization. Its rings are not static, they are dynamic and unpredictable, and within that unpredictability, strange anomalies have persisted for decades. Whether natural or artificial, the massive structure filmed moving near the rings is part of a long tradition of mysteries tied to this planet. Now, with a signal allegedly added to the mix, the question is no longer whether Saturn's rings are unusual. It is whether they might be the stage for something far greater than we have imagined. The alleged signal tied to the massive structure filmed near Saturn's rings has become the most controversial element of this unfolding mystery. While strange footage and unexplained objects can often be dismissed as optical illusions or debris, a signal, especially one that appears structured, forces far more uncomfortable questions. Astronomers have dealt with unusual cosmic signals before, but what makes this one so startling is not just its timing, but its characteristics. If the reports are accurate, this signal may not fit neatly into the category of natural planetary radio emissions. It may instead represent something closer to intentional communication. First, it's important to understand what makes Saturn's natural emissions unique. Cassini and Voyager recorded powerful bursts of radio waves from the planet, tied to auroras, storms, and its massive magnetosphere. These were chaotic and broad-band, resembling static on a radio, fluctuating with solar wind and plasma activity. The alleged new signal, however, was narrow-band, repeating, and unusually stable. It pulsed at regular intervals, almost like the ticking of a clock. That kind of precision is rarely seen in natural sources, which tend to drift, scatter, or fluctuate unpredictably. Leaked accounts describe the anomaly as lasting several minutes, cycling at an interval of exactly 21 seconds. This repetition alone raised eyebrows. Saturn's magnetospheric emissions don't conform to such neat timing. Even pulsars, the famous lighthouse stars of astronomy, vary in speed and intensity. The fact that the signal repeated with such consistency suggested, to some, an artificial origin. More intriguingly, the signal appeared to carry harmonics, secondary frequencies linked mathematically to the primary one. In radio science, harmonics often indicate intentional engineering, not random chaos. Comparisons were quickly made to the famous WOW signal detected in 1977 by Ohio State University's Big Air Radio Telescope. That 72-second burst, picked up while scanning the Sagittarius constellation, has remained one of the strongest candidates for an extraterrestrial technosignature. Like the Saturn anomaly, the WOW signal was narrow-band, strong, and unexplained. The difference is that the WOW signal was a one-off, never repeated. The Saturn anomaly, if confirmed, repeated in intervals, almost as if broadcasting a beacon. Skeptics point out that repeating signals are not always artificial. Certain magnetospheric processes, such as resonant waves bouncing between a planet and its moons, can create regular pulses. But critics of the natural explanation argue that such processes would not produce such narrow frequencies or such precise timing. Saturn's known emissions are wild and variable. The anomaly, by contrast, was clean, steady, and deliberate. Even more intriguing is the alleged correlation with visual anomalies near the rings. According to the timeline circulated by researchers, the signal was first detected just as amateur astronomers captured footage of a dark, elongated structure moving independently of ring particles. To dismiss both as coincidence is possible, but to believers the pairing is too convenient. If the structure is truly artificial, then the signal might have come from it, either as intentional communication or as a byproduct of its function. What could the signal mean? This is where speculation becomes unavoidable. If it was a beacon, it may not have been directed at Earth at all. It could have been an interstellar ping, a form of positioning or navigation between structures or craft. If it was a message, it could be something far beyond our decoding abilities, compressed, encrypted, or in a form we cannot yet recognize. For now, all researchers can say is that the anomaly had traits consistent with engineered transmission. Secrecy adds another layer to the debate. No major space agency has issued an official statement. NASA and ESA, both of which have extensive data archives from Saturn, remain silent. Some astronomers claim this is simply caution, the need to verify extraordinary claims before going public. Others believe it reflects a familiar pattern of suppression, where potentially disruptive discoveries are withheld to prevent public panic. After all, if a signal from Saturn were acknowledged as artificial, the implications would be global. There are also practical reasons for silence. Releasing the raw data would invite thousands of independent researchers to analyze it, potentially finding flaws or confirming the anomaly. By holding it back, agencies maintain control of the narrative. Yet this secrecy only fuels conspiracy theories. The longer the data remains hidden, the more people assume the worst, that a discovery has been made and the public is being denied the truth. The alleged Saturn signal now sits alongside other famous astronomical mysteries: the WOW signal, the repeating fast radio bursts, FRBs detected in recent years, and unexplained anomalies in star brightness like the case of Tabby's star. But unlike those distant phenomena, this one is in our own solar system, close, tangible, and connected to visible structures near Saturn. That proximity makes it more unsettling. We are not talking about signals from billions of light years away. We are talking about something right here, in the cosmic neighborhood, broadcasting from a planet we've studied for decades. If the signal is ever confirmed as artificial, the consequences would be staggering. It would mean that our solar system is not empty of intelligence but inhabited, or at least visited, by something far older and larger than us. It would mean that Saturn's rings, long considered a natural wonder, may also be a stage for technology beyond human comprehension. And it would mean that, for the first time, the silence of the cosmos has been broken, not by a distant star, but by a neighbor we thought we knew. If a massive structure moving near Saturn's rings has truly sent out a signal, then humanity stands at the edge of a revelation that would rewrite history, science, and our own sense of identity. For generations, we have asked whether we are alone in the universe. We have searched the skies with radio telescopes, probed distant planets, and speculated about extraterrestrial civilizations. Most answers have been silence, or at least unexplained mysteries too ambiguous to confirm. But if the Saturn anomaly proves to be artificial, then the silence has been broken, and the implications would ripple across every field of human life. First, there is the scientific reaction. Astronomers would demand immediate verification, repeated observations, multiple independent detections, and a thorough review of the data. If the signal is real, they would work feverishly to decode it. Was it a beacon broadcasting identity, like a lighthouse? Was it a compressed message, waiting for a species advanced enough to interpret it? Or was it not a communication at all, but simply the byproduct of an enormous machine operating in orbit around Saturn? Whatever the answer, the discovery would demand a radical rethinking of planetary science. Saturn's rings, long assumed to be natural, could turn out to be shaped, or even maintained, by technology. The political consequences would be just as profound. Governments would scramble to control the flow of information. If NASA or ESA confirmed the signal publicly, the announcement would dominate global news, sparking both awe and fear. Some nations would call for cooperation to study the anomaly. Others would see it as a security issue, fearing that the presence of a non-human intelligence so close to Earth could tip the balance of power. The military, in particular, would want to know whether the structure posed a threat. After all, if something that massive can move independently within Saturn's rings, what else might it be capable of? Religions, too, would be forced to confront the discovery. For some faiths, the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence could be interpreted as evidence of a greater divine creation, proof that life is abundant across the cosmos. For others, it might challenge long-held beliefs about humanity's unique place in the universe. The philosophical questions would be immense. Are we one of many? Have others been watching us? Do we play a role in a larger galactic order, or are we merely bystanders to powers beyond comprehension? Then there is the public. Reactions would range from wonder to terror. Some would celebrate, seeing the discovery as confirmation that humanity is part of a larger cosmic community. Others would panic, fearing invasion, domination, or apocalyptic consequences. New missions would be proposed, probes, orbiters, even crewed expeditions to investigate the anomaly directly. The world would find itself on the brink of an unprecedented space race, not between nations, but between humanity and the unknown. And yet, even as the scientific and political machinery churned, the emotional core of the discovery would remain simple awe. The realization that we are not alone, that intelligence beyond Earth has touched our solar system, would redefine what it means to be human. Saturn's rings would no longer be just a celestial wonder. They would be a cosmic message board carrying the signatures of forces far greater than us. Saturn has always drawn our gaze with its beauty, but now it draws our fear and our wonder. If the massive structure filmed near its rings has truly sent out a signal, then the cosmos is no longer silent. The question is no longer whether we are alone, it is whether we are ready to listen.